You're in the right place at the right time, stretching from the distant spaceports of Batu, Tatooine, and Ryloth, all the way to the bright center of the galaxy at Imperial Center, slamming into your hollow projector like a supercharged nanoparticle of coaxium. This is the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast. I'm John, he's Jason, and we are here to bring you your needed dose of Star Wars film, TV, book, comic, gaming, and collecting news. The date is July 26th, 2021, and we got some fun little updates for you today. We're going to be talking about the upcoming release of Disney Gallery, The Mandalorian, a special episode of that. We got news about the TIE Fighter Total Conversion made by fans. And then we're going to be reviewing the most recent 2 Bad Batch episodes. Super exciting. We haven't, it's not like our podcast has been nothing but that lately. And then we're going to talk about Star Tours and Disneyland memories and some of the history of Star Tours. So that should be fun. How has your week been, or weekend, I should say, Jason?
Pretty good. Still recovering from the trip to Colorado.
Oh, that's right.
Still catching up on sleep, but it seems like I never catch enough of it. So
yeah.
But that's it.
That's it.
Yeah, I haven't done anything. Actually, I kind of regret. I really wanted to actually read on that trip more, and actually I wanted to read
Cloak of Deception or something.
Cloak of Deception,
or the Phantom Menace, even.
No, I wanted to read Heart of the Jedi.
Oh yeah.
I didn't. I just didn't. It didn't happen. It didn't come together. So
yeah, actually, we are gonna. We'll do a review of that in the near future, because I think it's something that's ripe for, because we both got physical copies of the book. Actually, I haven't even looked recently about news about that to see if prices went down on eBay or anything. But
let's I don't know. It doesn't matter. No one cares.
No one cares.
The hot news is over.
Yeah, the hot news is over. No one gives a shit. It's but there's this well, again, my weekend, what did I do? I guess I, just kind of caught up on things around the house. Thankfully, the weather hasn't been super hot. It's actually been a somewhat moderate summer here. Just like
it rained today.
It rained today. I got some sprinkles. I went outside and I stood in it. It was very light rain.
Oh, down here, it legit rained last night and today.
I heard that parts of LA and Orange County, and even out in the desert, when I looked at the map, looked like the route to Vegas was getting pounded. So
yeah,
that should be interesting out in the desert. But
I know Arizona had some monsoons,
right,
weather on the way back from Colorado. We avoided it by going through North Arizona, but
right.
Oh, that was the thing that over the weekend. He-Man came out.
Oh, that's right.
And I was a big fan of He-Man when I was a kid. This He-Man, I think it might turn out okay, but it's got some problems.
It's got some flaws.
Yeah.
I'm going to check it out soon.
As people have described, it's kind of got The Last Jedi problems, which I think is maybe an apt description, but
yeah,
it was okay. I'm tentatively excited for the second half of this series that I think it should be coming out in January or something like that. So
yeah,
that was the exciting thing over the weekend. I had forgotten.
Right, He-Man, and of course Mark Hamill voices Skeletor for it, so that's cool. I think he's a great choice for Skeletor.
That's the Star Wars connection.
That's the Star Wars connection.
It's pretty good. I did. I really liked Skeletor's original voice, and
me too.
It was Oppenheimer that did his voice. Yeah. He is in the show. He just does Moss Man.
Oh,
which I thought was interesting. He does a different character. He just didn't do Skeletor. I'm not sure why. Maybe name recognition or something,
or maybe he just isn't confident in having the cackles. Maybe at his age.
That's true too, because I think he's 91. So
yeah, it could be that his voice has just changed enough to where maybe it's more challenging to do that on a consistent basis for recording or something.
He wouldn't have to do it too much, because like He-Man, Skeletor is not in the first half of this series very much. No spoilers, but
yeah, it is like The Last Jedi then. So Palpatine shows up at the end of the trilogy.
Yeah, he is not in the series that much.
Yeah,
but we'll see what the second half brings. He should be in it a lot. So
we'll see what happens. For all your Masters of the Universe news, just come to Star Wars Unfiltered.
Yeah.
And let's talk about this special episode of Disney Gallery that's coming in August 25th on Disney Plus. The quote here from StarWars.com, it says, the making of the season 2 finale is a behind-the-scenes look at the making of the celebrated chapter of The Mandalorian, with a focus on the technology used for recreating Luke Skywalker. It delves into the collaborative process, including working with Mark Hamill, to create an authentic and fitting recreation, and explores the immense pleasure and responsibility the filmmakers had in bringing back one of the most important characters in film history. So I think this will be good. We've kind of been, we've only gotten little tiny bits and pieces about what went into bringing Luke back. So I think having a full blown behind the scenes look at this is great. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm not sure that obviously they did a really good job keeping it a secret before the episode dropped and stuff. And I'm not sure if there was any trepidation about the response, or if they just knew. I mean, I feel like you just know, right? Especially after The Last Jedi and all that stuff with Luke.
This was almost making up for the kind of neutered Luke of the sequel trilogy, because this was
kind of there was that art, right, that came out at Comic-Con of Luke with Grogu. Did you see that? Yeah, that was like, I mean, dude, just that piece of art with him with Grogu was like light years better than anything in the sequel trilogy, as far as just looking at it and getting excited, because it's like, dude, this is what people wanted, at least Luke, hardcore Luke fans wanted. Right. This is what we want to see.
This is our Bantam era Jedi Academy Luke fanboy jerk off right here.
Yeah.
This is the New Republic fighting the remnants of the Empire Luke that we wanted to see for the last 25 years.
Yeah, it's interesting. I don't subscribe to the belief that the sequel trilogy will be, decanonized or whatever.
Nor do I.
But this is another thing, even just this piece of art, it's just really weird, right? Because it's like you've painted yourself into this corner of Luke becomes this bitter, burnt out old man, and I don't know. I don't even know what to say about it as far as.
Well, we still have decades before that happens, because the events with Kylo Ren and Luke at the Praxium, for a better word for it, would be that happens, I think, about 5 years before the sequel trilogy, because that's when Luke did his ghost. It was 5 years before,
right?
So we have 25 years before Luke reaches that point. So at least that's a pretty good chunk to work in some good stories.
Yeah, but the problem
where it's going. That's the problem.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Every time they do a prequel, or they keep going backwards, like Star Trek has this problem, or Star Wars, midquel. Star Wars has this problem, and I wouldn't say the prequel trilogy, because it's that was always kind of built that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But but even the High Republic, it's who cares? There's no stakes. It's too close to the prequels and Star Wars, the current time, that you don't. There's no sense of the galaxy is really in peril. Even on a smaller level, the Tales of the Jedi, so far in the past, that was there could be major things that happen, right? And but with the High Republic, it's Yoda's there. I mean, it can't be that bad, And it's
hard. It's hard for me to comment, because I know that they are talking about these galactic stakes with hyperspace and these other things in the High Republic. But overall, I know what you're saying. I agree, because we know everything's going to turn out fine before.
Right, and then this is the issue if you then go too far in the future with something, which I get it. I know why they did it. They had to do it with the sequel trilogy, but you've shown everyone what's going to happen, and you've got all this stuff to fill in. And but it's especially with Luke, it's but he turns into a piece of shit.
Hermit. Yeah.
He's drinking, sea cow milk.
Yeah, titty milk.
All weird.
from a sea cow. Yeah, no, you're right. So it is interesting to see these stories fill in like the Mandalorian. And I mean, I don't know where they're going to go with Grogu and Luke. And are we going to see more of them? Is it because we know we have to see Grogu again? We know they have to be reunited with him and Mando.
Well, Mando rescues him from the
from
Praxium,
Luke.
probably. Luke calls him, is like, you got to get him.
Obviously, that would be years in the future, but that would be so cool if that was like some kind of tangent to it.
What would actually be cool is if they just decanonized the sequels and just astroturfed it with new canon in shows and stuff.
Yeah.
You might as well. I mean, if you're gonna bring it, that's the other thing is like Thrawn and Ahsoka and stuff. It's like how the fuck is that gonna get fit in pre First Order, sequels? Like it has to be like I don't know. I don't know.
Clearly, they have to retcon the state of the New Republic and the Imperial Remnant as to explain things that went on in other canon novels that kind of said like the New Republic got rid of its fleet, the Empire doesn't exist, it just totally gave up after Jakku.
Yeah, but the problem is when you do that, you can't tell like you can't tell the story you want. You got to like fit it into, it's like whatever. You know what? It's like Ben says, except you got to let go of the future. Don't let go of the past.
Let go of the future.
Let go of the future. I don't know, whatever. So I am excited for this Disney Gallery episode.
Yeah,
for Luke, because I'm really curious on how they did it and what all went into it, and Mark's participation in it too. Absolutely. I'm super curious about that. So
absolutely. So in about a month or so, we'll see that, and we will probably have a review of it here. Jason, tell us about TIE Fighter Total Conversion. What you know about it?
It's total conversion of TIE Fighter, and it looks gorgeous.
Yes, it does. Yeah. So
that's what I know about it.
That's what you know about it. This is a fan project. I've been following this channel that provides the news updates directly from the devs, for lack of a better term. They are devs. But this is an entirely fan project using the original files from TIE Fighter. So you have to own the game previously, obviously.
And it's built it's built on the X-Wing Alliance engine, right?
Yes, it's built on the X-Wing Alliance engine. I think because that engine had been updated modded more than the other games over the years, so there was already a community of people that knew how to easily mod that engine.
Yes,
because it was the most advanced engine of the 3 original simulator games, or 4, I should say. So. And what's funny is there's all these mods. There's even a separate X-Wing Alliance mod. That's the one that's continually been modded over the years. And then there's even a separate X-Wing one, which you and I have talked about off of the show, which exists in a sort of beta form, but it's not totally complete yet, and they're still working on stuff. And then I don't think there's ever been a dedicated X-Wing versus TIE Fighter mod. That game just exists as it does because there wasn't much of a plot anyway, except for Balance of Power, the add-on. But TIE Fighter, this was something that was ripe for a mod. There hadn't really been much of one for years because everyone is focusing on Alliance. But I think this game was ripe for one more than any other because, first of all, I think this one was more. I think it was a bigger hit than X-Wing as far as how much it impacted the fan community when it came out in 1994. It was the first time we got to fly and see things from the Imperial perspective directly, and the story was more complex than anything in X-Wing and before. So there, with you and I, we've talked about TIE Fighter on the show in the past. We don't need to entirely go into how big we became fans, because of TIE Fighter, but there's so much to that game. So to see somebody take it and really do something with the graphics and update it really beautifully, and not just the graphics, but you can play the classic version of the campaigns the way they are, and then there's what they call the it's like campaign mode, or it's something where it's like they expand the missions now, because what they did is there was missions that in the old game were broken up with different briefings. because the game could only handle so many ships on screen at once.
Mm-hmm.
So it'd be like, okay, go jump back into your TIE fighter now. It's the second part.
Right,
but
right.
now in
Same
the new
battle,
version,
second
yes,
level or whatever.
Yeah, in the new version, you can do they string them together, and they might have breaks where you hyperspace from one buoy to another, but they basically modified the story and the events and the triggers for all the ships to be one continuous, seamless thing. And then on top of that, the immersion level is really high. So there's a lot of missions. If you see, and by the way, this is on this. If you just look up on YouTube, TIE Fighter Total Conversion, look that up. The channel is this guy named Angel. That's the name of his channel. He has all the behind the scenes updates and everything that I'm talking about. He goes into.
You should put a link to his channel in the
yes
in
when
the
this goes up.
Of the video.
Yeah, when this goes up, we'll have a link. And
because he goes in really in depth on like the stuff that they wrestled with as far as the way that AI worked in X-Wing Alliance versus TIE Fighter, the way that even the torpedoes,
the torpedo speed and like even the laser speed was a thing, because in the original game the lasers were relatively slow, and then it wasn't quite like the movies in that way. They kind of had to speed up the lasers, but then when you do that, it makes your ship sometimes too deadly because you're just blowing things up like with no trouble. So there was this constant tweaking. And then there's another guy connected to his channel. I think he has his own separate YouTube channel, which I don't remember the name of at the moment, but he worked on the MIDI for this new version. And so they got plugins that use real orchestral pieces, which it's a whole separate thing that people can purchase and stuff. And then this guy reorchestrated all the MIDI to make sure it was using the new updated sound capabilities of real orchestral pieces and percussion and everything, while still making it iMuse, because as we've talked about in some of our videos, when they had X-Wing versus TIE Fighter and I think Alliance, they just used the Red Book audio using movie tracks that would change, but it would only be like 6 or 7 tracks,
and it wasn't super seamless either. Not as seamless as iMuse.
Exactly. It would just it was kind of abrupt on the changes, and so this uses the original iMuse, and I think it's incredible. If you look at the footage of Total Conversion, it's beautiful. They've added planets in the background, like full size planets. There's nebula and gas clouds in the background. The explosions look great.
Yeah, it looks like the new game.
It really does. Squadrons. It looks a lot like it. It's not exactly on that level, only because the limitations of that Alliance engine can only go so far.
Yeah.
I actually probably in another 5 to 10 years, it probably will look even better than Squadrons if they update this again.
Well, it'll probably take us 5 to 10 years to get around and play either one.
Yeah, I know. I got to finish my original TIE Fighter Collector CD game, because I have so many games on the back burner.
This is a Black Fleet Crisis thing.
It really is.
Games.
It really is. But check out TIE Fighter Total Conversion. It's a beautiful fan update. The early access version is out. I think they've already added a patch already for some of the bugs
1.1.
They've already been patching it a little bit, but just look up that. We'll have a link in the description for the podcast, and check it out.
All right, let's talk about the Bad Batch, the 2 episodes.
Let's do it
since our last podcast. First up is episode 11. Right? Rescue and Ryloth. Was that
on our notes?
11?
I got the numbers wrong.
Oh, you did. It's 12. No, it's 12.
No, it is 12, but I put 12 and 12 on the 2 we're talking about. Sorry about that.
Confusing me.
I think I cut and paste.
All right, episode 12. Episode 12, Rescue on Ryloth.
Yes.
Rebels prequel part 2.
Yes, it really is.
How did you like the episode?
I thought it was okay. I kind of feel like the previous one was a little more exciting, probably because we were reintroduced to Cham and Hera and Ryloth and everything, so it felt fresh on that. By the time Rescue and Ryloth came around, I felt like it was just a kind of continuation, nothing terribly exciting, but there was some good action. We saw Omega and Hera team up and help in the attack on the Imperial refinery, which was basically a distraction so that the other guys could break in and break out Cham and his wife and that other, I think, blue advisor Twi'lek. I can't remember that guy's name, but so yeah, it was pretty good. Some good action. There was some flight with Hera flying a ship, I think for the first time on her own, like an actual landing. And
yeah, that was kind of neat.
Yeah. That's all I kind of got as far as like, there was no continuity, huge continuity things on this one. It was just kind of like, here's an action episode.
One of the things I liked is the music. Like when Crosshair was, on the screen.
Oh yeah,
it really struck me as really good. Like it was.
Me too.
Above what you would normally expect from.
It almost had a synthwave quality to it.
Yeah.
But it wasn't like derivative. Like, we hear so many trailers these days. It was like, right. But this was like done in more of a subtle way, and it was slightly electronic, but not to the point of being derivative, like I said. And
it stood out to me as really good.
Yes.
It kind of struck me with the quality. I mean, overall, it's every series has been a step up. Clone Wars from season to season, and then Rebels, and this is just one more step up from the previous. And it goes beyond the animation. It's the music is getting that much better too.
Yeah, and speaking of the visuals, I keep noticing it every episode. I'm like, wow, they couldn't quite do this during Clone Wars, whatever it may be, whether it's like the detail on the armor of a character or the colors and the shading. And I noticed they're doing a lot of perspective CG shots where they'll blur the backgrounds like it's in the distance, and they'll have something really crisp in the foreground.
Yeah.
And I've never seen a CG show honestly look this beautiful. I mean, I don't keep up with every show that's out there, but like, it looks beautiful, even more than Clone Wars or anything. So, yeah.
Speaking of beautiful, it occurred to me that because we've gotten live action Ahsoka, and we will get live action Thrawn, and Ezra presumably, and of course there's rumors about that now. I saw there's quote unquote confirmation that Lars Mikkelsen and I can't remember the actor for Ezra. Yeah, I believe that is true. I don't believe that they know. I think they're just guessing correctly. I don't think that they know. I think Lars is the foregone conclusion for
absolutely, and
the obvious choice for Thrawn.
Yeah, for anyone who might not know, he voiced Thrawn in Rebels season 3 and 4, and I think he did a great job.
Mads Mikkelsen's brother.
That's right, Garen Erso from Rogue One.
Right,
and I think he's when you get into speculating casting things with Star Wars and Lucasfilm, you start to pick up on patterns on what's likely to happen based on what came before.
Right.
And this one just makes sense. They want to be consistent with what we know the character to be in, at least in animated form, voice form. So if they went with somebody totally different with a different voice and whatever, that changes how you view the character, and their mannerisms would be slightly different. And, I'm someone who hates recastings. Unless it's a younger character, I'm okay with that. But I hate recastings when it's someone who's around the same age, because it takes me right out of it.
It made sense with Katie Sackhoff for Bo-Katan.
That was perfect.
It made sense because she looks like the character and obviously sounds like the character. So it's the same thing with him.
Great. Yeah.
But what I was going to say, speaking of beauty, is that I would pay money if they got if Omega showed up as an adult later, like maybe in that series even possibly, and they just put Tamora Morrison in a wig. I would love that so much. Like, just do it because she's a clone of
she's a
Django.
clone. You're not lying. There's no lie there.
just put Timur in a wig. I wonder if he'd go for it. That's what I really want to know. Like, if I was like a producer, like if I was Filoni, or Favreau, I would float that to him. I'd be like, hey, we got this character from this cartoon series you're doing, and it's a clone of you, and but it's female. Would you be interested in playing a female? Maybe you do. It'd be like Tu Wong Fu, the movie with
Patrick
Wesley
Swayze
Snipes and Swayze and stuff. Yeah,
John Leguizamo, on drag.
So
you never
good.
know. You never know. And there's actually a guy on Instagram who does CG recreations of characters, and he actually has. He used an app or something, or an art thing, and he took Tamura and he made her look like a her, and then changed the hair. Or I think maybe it was Daniel Logan. I think he might have done both, like older Omega and younger Omega.
You could get Daniel Logan.
I know, right? Daniel Logan. But there's people that do this fan art, and sometimes I'm amazed. And it actually, I mean, it didn't. I don't want to see that on screen, but it looked. He did a good job in actually like replicating what we would think that would be.
He did a good job making a horrible abomination.
Horrible Frankenstein abomination. I never thought of this, but yeah, that would be really funny.
It's just a blonde wig,
blonde wig, the cheapest blonde wig you could think of, like bought from a fucking costume shop.
Yeah, if there was like a comedy series that was based on Star Wars, like a SNL type thing, but
this is ripe for it.
But it was just Star Wars. That'd be the best.
Yeah.
And speaking of clones, the one. Just to shift gears, the one thing I noted from this episode that I wish would have happened is when Captain Hauser is making that little mini speech about, this is wrong, and we're not going to kill. Crosshair just should have killed him. Like,
I thought that might happen.
I thought it was going to happen too. I thought he's like right there. He's like got him in his, he could just shoot him right now. He's got him in his crosshairs. I kind of wish that would have happened. It would have really like been like, oh, that's cold,
That's dark, and the show has already kind of done things like that sort of.
Yeah, that's kind of why I expected it. But like, if even if he had like allowed him to make that speech, and like right before some guys are gonna like throw their weapons down, like they did, just boom, just shoot him, and then they're like, I guess I'm not doing that. You know what I mean? Like,
right. Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe they felt like it would be a little too dark.
A little too dark. It's possible. I kept wondering what Hauser, if there was some reference to that name, or like what was the meaning behind it. As soon as I heard it, I was like, "Is this a Total Recall reference?" Howdy, stranger. You are not you. You're me.
Get your ass to Mars. Get your ass to Ryloth.
Yeah, exactly.
Howdy, stranger. This is Hauser.
Yeah.
Kind of clone pulling a tracker out of their nose.
Oh man, if that happens in the next episode, you heard it here, folks.
Oh, they could do a whole episode that's just one long continuous riff on Total Recall stuff. Like,
I know.
They have to get the suitcase away from some lady.
Fuck you, asshole. Yeah, or there's like, instead of Johnny Cab, it's just some R2 unit driving a speeder, and instead of Mars, it's like it's Gromus or some other red planet with mining. I mean, they could go any which direction they want, but
give those people air.
Fuck them.
Fuck them. What about the people in Sector 17? Fuck them.
Cohagen, good times. And for anyone who wants to know, Total Recall is currently streaming on Netflix.
Is it?
So yeah, it is.
Oh, that's right. I think I've seen like the they'll show like the different alternate covers when you're flipping through.
It's on my watch list. I need to do a rewatch because
that's somebody I'd love to see in Star Wars is Ronnie Cox.
that would be good. I imagine he must be really up there in age now, because he was in probably his 60s back then, I guess.
He is, but I think he's still active. Same with Michael Ironside.
Yeah, I know Michael Ironside is still acting, doing some straight to DVD stuff.
He could be Jarek.
Dude, that might actually work because he kind of looks like him.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I just base everything off the looks. So if he looks
Morgan
like
Catan.
yeah.
Yeah, no, that would be good. Getting back to the Bad Batch here. Let's talk
Anyway,
about the
that's
next episode.
episode 12.
Episode 12, Rescue on Ryloth. Episode 13, Infested. As soon as I saw the title of this, I was like, oh no. It's going to be another bug hunt, sir. But no, there was some
Mantell is a bug planet.
It's a bug planet, an awful planet, a bug planet. Yeah, it's just going to be a long Verhoeven tribute, this whole podcast. But no, the Bad Batch goes back to Ord Mantell. They don't know where Sid is. They see some overturned tables and some knocked out or dead bodies, I guess. And her hideout is taken over by a Deveronian named, I think, Durand, and who we've never seen before. New character who had a very interesting kind of melodious voice, which was he kind of reminded me of what's the guy from Batman Begins who played Scarecrow? What's that actor's name?
Cillian Murphy.
Yes,
I think that's how you pronounce his first name.
It is. He had that delivery. He sounded kind of like a Cillian Murphy. And then so the Bad Batch gets involved. Sid is hiding. They have to get some spice for the Pikes, who we've previously seen, of course, briefly in Solo on Kessel, and then they were in Clone Wars season 7 and a couple other seasons, I think. And so they go into this mine shaft, and they have to get past. Oh, you know, when it was in the mine shaft, what movie did that remind us of?
Which?
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom.
I didn't get that.
It was near the end when the mine carts were more like sped up and there was
I guess I see that. I was just, it was so slow. I didn't.
Yeah,
that wasn't my first thought.
It was only briefly. It was when like the two mine carts slammed into each other, and then I think the Pikes or those guards like fell out, and I was like, oh, it's like when Indy, hit the brake thing.
Oh,
and then,
yes,
yeah, kind of similar.
It reminded me. I mean, well, at least when Wrecker drops the flashlight, it reminded me of Lord of the Rings when
yes,
he pushes the armor or whatever into that hole.
Yeah, Fool of Mary. Yeah, Fool of a Took. Yeah, that was very close also, and it was kind of gross seeing the spider webby kind of crap like in along the walls. I was like, oh. Yeah. This is going to be disgusting spider kind of things. But no, they were more like, to me, they looked like giant gnats.
Yeah, it was weird.
They weren't like moths or anything. Yeah, it was like giant gnats, but they basically swarmed out and caused a lot of destruction. And it was a pretty good episode. This one, it felt even more like filler than the previous one to me. It was just another little side story doing another job, quote unquote, for Sid.
Well, I suppose Durand could show up again, like maybe they're establishing him as a character, because one of the things, my complaint I would say about the episode is that the whole thing between him and Omega and the end was kind of cliche, I guess, or soft. It just, he's not all that bad. And, even when the Pikes are like, getting ready to presumably kill him, Sid's like, oh, you don't have to do that. And it's like, what the hell? You're supposed to be some badass and he took over your bar. You should be like, yeah, kill him,
Yeah. I thought that was a little soft and a little too much of a kind of a cliched episodic TV ending to an episode, but
it is a cartoon. It is TV, so what do you expect?
So it makes sense.
It's fine.
And the target audience is not going to care or even notice those cliches, really. So it's okay. It was just it was an okay episode. I wasn't blown away by anything. It didn't further the story a whole lot. But it's obvious now that we are getting introductions to new characters, and the ones we know we're learning more about, like Sid. It seems like Sid is becoming somewhat of a main character, actually. Not just someone who gives them their jobs, but might even run with the crew maybe in the next season or something.
So I think there's a lot of groundwork being laid.
Yeah, there is. Yeah.
So yeah, it was
Yeah.
all right.
Yeah, same here. I think that's all I got to say about those 2 episodes.
Thanks, Forrest.
That's all I got to say about that. But let's talk about Star Tours and Disneyland memories. Do you remember your first Star Tours trip?
No. I mean, you know, I don't have a strong recollection of the first time that I went on Star Tours.
Yeah.
Which I guess is kind of weird because up until I got my first pass, which was annual pass to Disneyland, which I think would have been around 1998, 97, 98.
Probably 97, because it almost seems like I remember you mentioning that around the time we met.
Yeah, it would have probably been, it would have been around that time, I think. 97 makes more sense because there's some things I remember distinctly at Disneyland.
Like meeting up with Lisa. Remember, what's it? Well, Daytona, Lisa, whatever her name was. You know who I mean.
Yeah, that was a really long time ago. But yeah, that would have been well, you know, that whole
was a group thing though. You had your friends and then she had her friends, and
yeah, but that's the weird thing. I can trace, I mean, this is just Disneyland stuff, but
yeah,
I can trace the line, the direct line of meeting you, and then through you, Lisa, and then her friends and so forth, to meeting my wife. Like,
really? I think you told me once.
Yeah, I think I've traced that line, how that worked, of like meeting different people and then people in the orbit of those other people, and then it expanding out. Thing. Yeah. So, but anyway, yeah. So 97. Before that, my trips to Disneyland would have been really, they would have been few and far between. Maybe like a semi-annual thing going with my grandmother growing up. And we would not have been, we would not have gone on Star Tours. So like a trip with my grandmother as a kid, I wouldn't have gone on Star Tours. Yeah. So, I mean, probably sometime in 97 was probably the first time I went on, but I can't remember distinctly.
Yeah.
So, actually, you know what? No. Yeah. Now that I think about it, that wasn't the first time I had a pass. That was actually the second time I had a pass. I did have a pass earlier in the 90s. I remember I just now remember jogging everything. Yeah. Having a pass when I was in high school, earlier in high school, and going then, maybe middle school too. I'm not sure. Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, it would have been like the early mid 90s the first time I went on Star Tours.
My family went to Disneyland. It was usually like I think in the 80s we went every 2 years or so, because it was always like either my birthday or my sister's birthday. That was kind of how it started. And then there was even times like we went with my grandma and my uncle Dan, because there's pictures of like me and him and in the boats, which they got rid of, I think, years ago. But yeah, so when I first remember going on Star Tours, it was the summer of '88. I remember my cousin BJ was visiting from Washington, and I think my Aunt June was also with us, but it almost seems like he flew down by himself first. Anyway, there's a picture I posted on my Facebook of us standing in front of Star Tours, me and my sister and him, and we have our like hypercolor, 80s colored clothes on, and like all that stuff. And I very distinctly remember going, because I remembered seeing the commercials when Star Tours was coming out in early 87 or so. Like, it was probably just jammed in between cartoons, but I remember the commercials of flying down the trench and seeing the footage and all that. And I remember being so excited. But I think when I saw that, I was still living up in Portland, so it was like, oh, I can't go to Disneyland as easily. And then we moved back in '88, and so we went that summer. And it was each time I went on Star Tours in later years, it kind of jogged that initial memory. So it was kind of a repetition of the same stuff, you know?
Yeah.
So seeing the calamari officers up in the window during the queue, the queue video, seeing Hoth in the cantina, and of course as a kid you think you really are going to see these other planets on the ride,
Yeah.
and then R2 and 3PO and all that, and it was so exciting, and then I was blown away because it was the first time I was on a simulator, because they weren't common really that was kind of a new thing in the 80s, except for like commercial airline pilots or fighter pilots. Yeah, my beard really had it.
Jabba the Hutt.
Jabba the Hutt riding on Star Tours. So it blew me away, but there's memories that, again, because they've repeated in my mind for so many years as being marked as a thing, that I distinctly recall from that first visit. One thing is when you're on the ride and it starts and the Star Destroyer tractor beam is pulling you in,
mm-hmm.
You only see the bottom of the Star Destroyer, not the full diamond shape. Yeah. And I remember thinking, is that Imperial ship square? Because you're only seeing that bottom half,
Right.
And I thought in my mind, this was some variation on a Star Destroyer design. And I thought it was square. And I was like, okay, kind of like Vader has his own bigger one. This is a square one. And it was just a stupid, I always remember thinking that. And then
stupid kid
thought, and so the rest of the ride blew me away, whatever. And then when you exit and walk down the exit towards the Star Trader, they had the posters of the different planets on the wall.
Yeah.
And there was, I think it was like Yavin and Bespin. The first time I remember taking note of the name of Yavin and Bespin was seeing those posters, because they don't say those planet names in the movie. Not a single time in the classic trilogy. They just say, oh, we're going to Cloud City, or Rebel Base is here. And so I remember looking up and thinking, Yavin, where's that? Oh, that's from Star Wars. And then Bespin, I was like, okay, Cloud City. I never knew that. So I always loved those posters, and they had those well into the 90s. Those same ones on those walls.
Don't they say Yavin, or do they not say Yavin?
No, they don't say it in the original trilogy, not once. It's kind of like Endor, same thing. They don't say it in the movie.
Yeah, that's a weird thing.
Oh wait, I think they say the moon of Endor, or no, sorry, they don't say Ewoks in the movie. That's the one.
Okay.
They don't say. They do say Endor once or twice. But
that's one of those weird things. What is it? We
take for granted. That's for sure.
Well, yeah, totally. But there's I think one of the movies, there's no subtitles. There's no alien subtitles.
Oh yeah.
We talked about this at some point.
Mm-hmm.
We chatting about it. I don't remember which one it was. Was it Revenge of the Sith?
I think so. Either that or Attack of the Clones.
I don't remember. That's beside the point.
Beside the point. But yeah, no, it is one of these things. Oh yeah, as a kid, you don't think of that, and then you see it, and you're like, oh, that's the name of that thing. A lot of the toys did that too. You'd know the name of somebody from the toy more than in the movie where they're not named. But yeah, so and then.
Well, that was kind of the interesting thing about Lucas, is that he was so detail oriented on world building and stuff that this stuff would exist. There would be a name for the planet that Cloud City's on.
Right.
You wouldn't see it until you saw some extra media or toys or whatever.
Exactly. So Star Tours had this big grand opening at Disneyland. Now,
before you get into that, okay, so kind of thinking back and then looking at some stuff cross-referencing things that were going on in the 90s and stuff.
Yes.
It must have been 94, maybe 93.
Yeah.
I had my first Disneyland pass and would go without the family or my grandmother.
Yes. Yeah.
And so that would have been probably the first time I went on Star Tours with my friend Nick, because my friend Nick and I always go we both had passes, and we just get dropped off at Disneyland and go and all that stuff. So
speaking of friends at Disneyland, I said I was saving this for the podcast. 20 years ago today, you and I met up at Disneyland. That was like I think the only time we did.
Yeah, it must have been because I have almost no recollection.
I don't have much of one either, other than we obviously went on Star Tours. We met up at Star Trader because this was pre-cell phone era.
Mm-hmm.
So the thing was,
everything would have to be set up beforehand.
It was like, so obviously I knew a few days in advance I was going, but I think here, and this is before I had my license. So what I did was I had my dad drop me at the train station, I think in Oxnard, which is the common train area, bus area. And then I took the train through LA, through Union Station, and then it took me all the way to Angel Stadium in Anaheim. And then I took a cab from there, 5 or 10 minutes over to Disneyland. And then, yeah, I messaged you ahead of time on AOL, like, meet me at Star Trader at whatever time it was, 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock.
It's like a weird rendezvous from a spy movie or whatever.
Exactly. So yeah, that was it. And I think I wasn't waiting there that long. We met up, we looked around a little bit. Obviously, we went on Indiana Jones and the Temple of the Forbidden Eye. We did Star Tours, obviously, and we must have done a few rides, but I don't have any like specific memories, you know.
Yeah, but, it's sort of, especially for me at the time. You know, there was 2 big blocks of time periods where I had annual passes or annual pass to Star Wars. So there'd be so many trips, you know.
And I never had a pass, but I was doing after I went once in 97 with my dad, and then I did a family trip in 95 and actually the one in 95 was very distinctive because it was for my sister's birthday. So this was like early July, and she brought a friend, and then I brought a friend. So I brought John Cornelius, and I remember that one because it was my first time going on Star Tours as a hardcore Star Wars fan. So now it was suddenly different, and I was looking at the ride differently and older. I was old enough to appreciate more of the aesthetics of stuff, but I remember a good memory of Star Trader, how it used to be. They used to carry West End Games role-playing books.
Yes.
And I mean, you know, you get a little bit of everything, some action figures and whatever, but they used to carry West End Games books and Bantam novels. And I remember seeing some West End books that my local comic shop just didn't carry for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, Kraken's Rebel Field Guide.
Well, they wouldn't have been... those books wouldn't have been flying off the shelves at the Star Trader.
No,
right? That was part of the thing. Like if you go to a bookstore, you're people are looking for books there. But you know,
and
tourists and stuff.
I actually bought on that trip in 95. I bought my copy of Kraken's Rebel Field Guide there, and I'm pretty sure that on the back of that I still have the Disneyland price sticker on the back with Mickey's ears, and I think it says Star Trader.
Yeah, so what I wouldn't say that it was part, or even part of the catalyst, but it would have been going to Disneyland with my friend Nick and stuff in 94 around that time would have been about the same time that my fandom was like reigniting from
TIE Fighter and all that.
Yeah, TIE Fighter, the books like Chusabakura. I remember I remember when that book came out. So it would have been around the same time that the dormancy period after being a little kid was starting to reignite. And you mentioned the sticker. I have a little pewter Darth Vader statue that's maybe like 2.5, 3 inches tall or whatever. Super heavy. Actually,
I know the design. I know the one you mean.
Yeah, in fact the stupid lightsaber has broken off. I need to fix it. I need to either I don't know if I could solder it or take it to some place to get it fixed or whatever. But on the bottom of it, I still have the price sticker. And it's funny because that sticker always reminds me I paid way too much fucking money for that thing. It was such a waste of money.
Yeah,
I mean it's cool, but it was like $40.
Yeah, my Kraken's Rebel Field Guide wasn't that bad because the thinner West End books at the time were only about $15. So I think that was the retail price of that, which wasn't bad at all. It's funny because in recent years, well, I haven't been to Disneyland since 2016, but when I went then, and even in like 2005, I would always hope to find another role playing book and buy one just for nostalgia's sake from Star Trader.
That's not
And
going to happen.
yeah, they didn't. I didn't see any. I don't know. Maybe now they have some the Fantasy Flight Games ones. Maybe they do. They do have the Marvel trade paperbacks. I saw a bunch of those 5 years ago.
Well, because they own Marvel.
Because they own Marvel.
I mean, that's part of it. But they've also I mean, now you would think you might have a good chance just because Star Trader has expanded out into the greater store area there, because it used to be confined to the little store area, but now it's expanded out to the rest of it.
Check this out. Okay, do you remember in Star Trader when you look up, you'd see that full-size X-wing kind of like attached to kind of like back, not really on the ceiling, but like there was kind of a back area with a window and there was like a full-size X-wing up there?
Yeah.
Okay, that used to be more viewable. Okay, like when Star Tours first opened, they used to have the longer queues that would go outside, and there used to be a side room that was mostly just like a shed that was just kind of like had air conditioning and was kind of nice, but it was just the queue extended when they first opened. I think I only saw the inside of that once or twice because usually the queue was small. So I think the X-Wing was more, you could see it easier from that other side queue room that they used to use. But also, there was the People Mover in Tomorrowland, which was like not really a monorail, but it was kind of like a smaller monorail, and you just sat in it, and it went on tracks on like an upper kind of section of Tomorrowland. So you just go around.
Which it may be coming back too.
Oh,
they've talked about bringing it back. Yeah.
Interesting. So I remember, because I looked up the history of People Mover and when they got rid of it. I think it was 94, because I remember when I went in 93 with my friend Johnny, who went with us. We went on the People Mover, and it used to go right next to that X-Wing up there above Star Trader. And that's when you get a really good view of it. And it was something where I thought, like, later, I was like, how come I don't remember that after that one trip? And it was because they got rid of People Mover. But
yeah, and then they got rid of People Mover. They put in rocket rods. That didn't work out. And it's been defunct and unused since then. But they've, there's all sorts of weird OSHA things that dictate what can and can't be built at this point. And so and that's a whole nother discussion.
That is a whole other thing.
I think Bob Chapek has mentioned that they might bring it back. Like they can't rebuild it, but I think if they can bring it back and circumvent the OSHA rules about certain ADA accessibility stuff. So
right.
Anyway,
what's funny about Tomorrowland in general is that before Star Tours, going to Disneyland as a kid in the 80s, I don't have a distinct Tomorrowland memory. All my memories of it are the Star Tours era and later. So it's kind of like that was so distinct. It was always the thing, after I became a fan, we're going to beeline straight to Star Tours as the very first thing when we go in the park. And then, do a bunch of other stuff. And then maybe at the end of the day, go one more time. That was always the ritual. But
that's the move, man.
Yeah.
If there's a ride you want to go on, you go first and you go last. So.
Exactly. There was that time in 2005 when I met up with some Jedi Council friends and I think this was only a week, or no, it was a month after I had just gone in May with my sister and stepsister. So I had these like back-to-back Disneyland trips that year because they had passes and I didn't, but I just went with them. And then met up with some Jedi Council members. One guy who's still there, Grand Admiral Jello, he's still posting at the Jedi Council. He's an active part of the community. I don't remember the names of the other guys. I kind of vaguely knew them, but I was mostly going to meet up with Mara, who was Naboo's princess, I think was her name. And I had briefly seen her at Celebration 3 at the Force.net booth. So it was like, oh, I didn't know you live in Southern California. And I think we were all going for, it was like the Star Wars Day or whatever. I mean, we didn't get the one that Florida got, like Star Wars weekends, but they still had like what they called Star Wars Day, where I think they still did stage shows with like Jedi, learned how to
Yeah,
be a Jedi kind of thing.
they would have had it at that little stage at the
Yes,
Tomorrowland Terrace or whatever.
right. So I remember meeting up with those guys. We went on Star Tours only one time, I think, and I had to force them. I was like, "Are you kidding me? We're all like hardcore Star Wars fans, and they're like, I've been a million times," and I'm like, "No, let's go. It'll be fun." So I just remember that, and then I lost touch with all those guys. But
Now that was before the switch, right? To the new content.
yes,
Yeah, I
that
mean,
was.
I mean, if you knew then what you knew now, would have
Yeah,
gone on it tons more.
I know, and yeah, the switch over, and dude, okay, that's another thing I wanted to mention. Lucas, from the beginning, obviously, according to this Disney Plus special, the Behind the Attraction, which we'll talk about here and there, which is the history of Star Tours and Disneyland. Lucas planned from the beginning to have the story be kind of modular and to be updated and changed as time went on. So I remember reading in Star Wars Insider magazine, like in the mid 90s, late 90s, around the time of Phantom Menace, like Lucas or Lucasfilm put out a press release saying Disney Imagineers are updating Star Tours. And I remember you and I and other fans were like, yeah, cool, awesome. Like, we want to see something new. It would be another like 11 years before we finally had it. It was 2011 when they finally made it 3D and made the interchangeable video segments and totally revamped it. I mean, well, we're kind of jumping ahead because I do want to talk about the original ceremony from the 80s, but
please do.
please do, yeah. So when Star Tours first opened in 1987, it was the 10th anniversary of Star Wars. Now, I have to remember, this was the dark times. This was the times of the Ewok cartoon, the Droids cartoon, a little bit of Kenner action figures phasing out from stores and not selling very well.
Yeah.
This was really the dark times. Star Tours was probably
pre-Zon.
Pre-Zon. This was probably the singular bright spot on Star Wars at this time.
Yeah.
Other than Weston Games starting the role-playing book in the same year, but that flew under the radar. That was like college kids that were like holding on to their like preteen life, that was very under the radar. So there's this big grand opening, really cheesy. They called it the Star Wars Ballet or something. It was like they had stunt actors and a terrible Han Solo that who does he look like again?
There's a shot in it, a couple shots where he looks like Chris Farley, but like thin, right? Like
yeah,
it just looks like Chris.
Does.
Yeah, it's just his hair and everything. It's like
for anyone curious, you could go on YouTube and just look up Star Tours opening ceremony. You'll find it. It's really bad. George Lucas is there. Michael Eisner is there giving a speech for the opening.
What do you think that, like, because obviously, like, Lucas is like really hands-on with stuff, and he was with like Star Tours, but like when it comes to the opening ceremony and there's going to be like some weird ballet and like show.
Yeah, what is going through his mind?
Someone else comes up with it, right? He's not coordinating that thing, and then he's like standing there and just like, what the fuck am I
could
watching?
See him, honestly. I mean, if he's like us, but if he has a certain sense of humor, I could see him sidling over to Michael Eisner or somebody and going, what the fuck is this shit?
Dude,
what is this garbage?
I imagine him having a really dry sense of humor sometimes.
Yes, he does.
So I could totally imagine him doing that. Just to fuck with Eisner or whoever.
Because we know he's fucked with people, like when he rejected some video game concept, and remember the Darth thing?
Yeah, the Darth Icky thing. That story is what informs my opinion that he has a really dry sense of humor, because that's something like I would do, right?
Yeah,
just to fuck with people. If I was like really bored, I'd be like, yeah, Darth Icky. Like, who gives a shit, you know?
So yeah, I imagine he was horrified by the sight of this opening ceremony. There was also a TV special on the Wonderful World of Disney. I didn't see it at the time. I later traded a VHS tape with another fan, and they mailed me a tape in like 2000, 2001 This is pre YouTube, and I watched it, and it was hosted by Gil Gerard from Buck Rogers and Ernie Reyes Jr., who we knew from, well, he was in TMNT 2, The Secret of the Ooze later, but they were both in a movie called Sidekicks, which I think was like a martial arts movie.
Yeah, I remember watching. I remember watching that Wonderful World of Disney segment with Star Tours recently.
Yeah, I think I linked it to you, and we both saw it on our own.
It was a different time.
It was certainly a different time, and then it goes into like the making of not just the ride, but like the history of space travel and NASA and all this stuff. And it's definitely a product of the '80s. But there was
when they felt like they had to like inject some educational component into it.
Yeah, that was that time period in '80s television when they were saying that kids were just getting fed toy and cereal commercial crap over and over.
So they would shoehorn, like in the cartoons, they'd shoehorn in like some moral at the end of the show, like G.I. Joe and He-Man like did that all the time.
Yeah. Yep, that was that time period. So there was those things, and I think even when Star Tours opened, well, in this Disney Plus thing, they talked about how the park was open for 3 days straight. I think even late at night or through the night or something. It was like the big giant thing. And then I think I even read, I think in my Bantha Tracks newsletter from back then, I think it was technically a convention for the 10th anniversary. So I think there was even people there with tables selling merchandise and other things. From what
that would be so bizarre. Just even the park being open that
I know,
like straight, and that speaks to the power of the fandom and the hype of Star Wars. Where
even in the dark times,
even then, Disneyland would have stayed open with extended or full 24 hours for like 3 days straight or whatever they mentioned. And even I remember when the Phantom Menace came out, theaters were open 24 hours. I remember seeing the show at midnight and then seeing the show at like 3 a.m. the same night. And oh, how the mighty have fallen. But I mean, it's also that's just not much of a thing anymore. Like midnight shows.
Right. That was such a big like late 90s, early 2000s thing. And then I guess once they started changing the fan premieres to just be on a Wednesday or Thursday, then the whole midnight thing on Thursday night kind of went out the window. But anyway,
but that would be huge for Disney to even have like a semi-convention or something.
Yeah, and I think they considered it one of the first official Star Wars / Lucasfilm meetups or conventions. It was kind of a proto celebration, even though it was a lot smaller. And there was some 10th anniversary merchandise that was exclusive. There was posters, and I know Steve Sansweet has occasionally brought these things up in different articles and things. But yeah, there was some stuff that later became highly sought by collectors from that Disneyland gathering, I should call it. So anyway, we could jump ahead now to the 2011 revamping. So I didn't go on it for a number of years. I think 2016 was the first time I actually went on it. I just watched stuff on YouTube for like several years. Like that was the way I was going to see it. So I was like, fuck it. I'll just check it out. Like that summer, I think it came out, and I just binged a bunch of, and this was like pre-good digital camera kind of era. It was like, you had to have an expensive one to get good footage. Otherwise, everything was jumbly and kind of weird. But yeah, that was how I first saw like Darth Vader in the hangar and the whole Rebel spy thing. Who is it? And yeah.
I don't think I had gone on it until getting a pass again, when me and my wife got passes for Disneyland, probably I think in like 2016. And I hadn't bothered.
Time I did.
Yeah, and I hadn't bothered to like look up footage or anything. So
yeah.
I like the new stuff well enough. My only complaint would be I'm typically, and this is a case of it, I'm not a huge fan of 3D unless it's high frame rate, like The Hobbit was. It's the only time I've ever been super impressed with 3D is The Hobbit, high frame rate 3D presentation. And I really don't like when something gets updated, but they take away the old thing. And I understand with like, amusement park rides and stuff, especially physical ones, something that's totally physical, like a roller coaster or, whatever.
Yeah.
If you update it or you have to remove the old thing, right?
Yes.
It would be nice if they could somehow work in the original Star Tours experience as
I know.
an option for the new one.
I know.
Even,
like a rare Easter egg if you go on, because there's the combinations. You have 54 combinations. It would be nice to just have that be a rare thing that would come up or something.
Yeah, or even if they just redid it, like if they just redid it,
everything,
and they could rework the because obviously it's not Captain Rex anymore and stuff, but
right, because the 2011 one is a prequel to the original. It's the Starspeeder 1000, I think, and the original is the 3000. So
wait, what?
Yeah,
that's a thing.
Oh yeah. So the original ride. No, it's no bullshitting. Let me tell you, because well, you remember at Celebration 2 or 3, I was the one that was they handed me the microphone and I was talking to Zahn.
Yes.
And I said, "Thank you for making some Star Tours references in Spectre of the Past and these other things." He was one of the few authors that was inserting like star speeders into the story. And but the other question I had for the authors there, or they had a continuity guy. I don't know if it was Leyland Chi. I don't think it was Pablo. But there was somebody there, and I said, "Are you guys going to work Star Tours into the continuity like officially?" Because it had never been done officially. Like they never talked about a third Death Star. It was always like TIE Fighter throwing in a ship name here, or like Tales from the Mos Eisley Cantina making a little drop on the Rex line. Like, I've never done this before. And then he said, well, it's always been kind of an awkward thing, obviously, the Death Star, and like, it's hard to do, but they did sort of do it in an article on StarWars.com. It's like a historical like article / blog thing that's written in universe, I think. And so the original takes place about 1 year after Return of the Jedi. And then Star Tours, the updated version, is 1 year before A New Hope. So it's weird. It's like when R2 and 3PO are sort of not working for Bail Organa, and they did a little side adventure, and then obviously you have Darth Vader and Han Solo shows up in the Falcon, and it's so hard to fit in though. You got
and then now they have the one that's
the Force Awakens stuff. And
wait, do they have the Force Awakens stuff or just the Rise of Skywalker?
No, for each sequel they added a new planet.
They've added a new one. Okay.
Yeah, when the Force Awakens came out, they added Jakku, and Finn shows up on the comm. And then for Last Jedi, it was Crate, and I can't remember. I think it might have been. No, it wasn't Lando. Lando was on Rise of Skywalker, and then they added that one grass planet in the Endor system. Well, basically the Death Star superstructure.
Right, yeah. But that one I distinctly remember, probably because it was the last one I saw.
The last one.
Everything got shut down. In fact, fun Star Tours memory. The last time I went on it, before Disneyland shut down for the pandemic and stuff, I went with my wife and sister-in-law and the kids. And they were going to watch the parade. And they go, I had done everything with them all day. Same rides, everything.
Yeah.
They're going to watch a parade. I'm like, you know what? You guys watch a parade. I'm going to go on Star Tours. Like, we haven't done that. And, my daughter's at the time was still too small to go on it. So I'm like, I'm going to go to Star Tours. I think I went on it twice or something like that.
Yeah.
So I go on it. Everything's great. The Rise of Skywalker stuff. It's great. And I got sick right after that trip. I got sick.
Really?
This was in March of last year.
Yeah.
I have no idea. I mean, it was probably too early for it to have been COVID. It was certainly too early to like test or anything.
Yeah,
And even it was too early to have tested for like antibodies later.
Right.
It was probably just the flu or whatever. But Last
Yeah.
time I went on Star Tours, I got sick. It was clearly Star Tours because it was right after that trip, and that was the only ride I did by myself. The whole time I was like,
Yeah. Yeah.
doing hand sanitizer, but I
So
think
that means like Teak or Chewie wiped their fucking Wookiee or Teak snot on one of
I
the
got Wookiee flu.
armrests.
I got Wookiee flu. You know what? Wookiee flu sounds like some weird Star Wars STD.
I wouldn't be surprised if it
I love
exists.
an unclean Wookiee.
Yeah.
Um, uh, anyway, that's my fun. That's the last
Interesting.
time.
Yeah.
I've been. Oh, and that's the other thing. Obviously it's not Star Tours, but that trip there were I think my wife had already gone on it on a trip that she went with her sister and stuff. But Rise of the Resistance had just come out, and she's like, "Hey,
Right.
do you want to go on the Rise of the Resistance?" But I was like, I don't want to wake up early and
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
I'm like, it'll be there. I can go.
And
I
then
can go in a
COVID.
couple months. I could go in a couple months before the pass runs out, because at the time the
Yeah.
pass was going to run out. Like for me, it was going to run out like October or something. I was like,
Yeah.
I'll just go
Yeah.
later.
Sure. Sure.
Shit, I still haven't been on it.
Dude, and I had an opportunity too because my friend Haley, when I went down there with her, and we met up with you for the Secrets of the Empire, and then like the next month or something, she's like, do you want to go to Galaxy's Edge? Like, I can pay for you. I know you're like tight on money right now. I'll drive. And I was like, well, I kind of want to wait and
we had been talking about we had been talking about going that year, like at some point, like because we had talked about it, and you were like, you were like on the fence the year before when Galaxy's Edge opened, and I was always like, hey, you can wait because they're going to open this new ride. It makes more sense for you to wait to go.
That was the thing. So like I passed on that, and then even then I really was definitely planning to go the next year for my 40th birthday in April. And this was being planned early mid-March, like a month before. My dad said, "Oh, I'm going to be visiting down there anytime. I'll drive down, then you and I can go in the Cole, and then whatever." And I was like, "Yeah, cool."
You're planning the trip. You're planning the trip. I'm laying on the couch, dying of the Wookiee flu, watching whatever season 3 of Castlevania in a fever dream.
Right. Yeah, so I am so pissed that I have not gone to Galaxy's Edge yet. But consider this episode part 1 of our Disneyland discussion, because I intend to go.
I feel like Bib Fortuna.
I know, right? If my tax return hurries the fuck up, it's in like tax return limbo. There's a possibility I might go this year, but I just don't know. There's so many variables with Delta variant of the COVID, and then like crowds surging more, and I don't know. I just don't know.
We weren't sure what we were going to do as far because we had passes, and then they discontinued the pass program. We had frozen our passes to hopefully have them reinstated when the park opened, but then Disney decided to get rid of their pass system, at least temporarily.
Right.
And so we considered going to Disneyland when everything started opening back up in May, but we opted for Universal Studios instead, which I have no regrets about that. That was a really good trip and stuff. And hey, Rise of the Resistance is still going to be there whenever I go.
It's still going to be there, and then you got Smuggler's Run, the Millennium Falcon thing, and
that's definitely what I want to do. I want to go there and touch all that stuff, touch the Millennium Falcon, get some more Wookiee flu going on.
Exactly. I mean, that's the big thing. I want to be able to meet up with you, and then you and I can go off and really fucking nerd out with the Aurebesh translator and the app and everything.
Yeah, I kind of downloaded it when I was going before, but like I didn't get too heavy. I just kind of checked it out a little bit, but I was like, you know what? I know that I'm gonna want to like really. I want to do this with John because
exactly, that was my thought, and that's why like I've only dabbled in watching some of the officially released stuff, and I've not watched too many YouTube videos of people there because I just want to experience it. So I've purposely been avoiding looking at too much of the Rise of the Resistance stuff and Smuggler's Run.
Oh yeah, Rise. I know nothing about it. I haven't looked up anything. I've just heard that it's like through people I know and stuff that've been on it. They have said it is the best ride of that
Yeah.
kind of type, that virtual type ride. It is
Yeah.
the best ride ever made.
Yeah. From the bits and
Which is
pieces.
probably that. I mean, that's probably and it was. I mean, I think objectively it was at the time. Star Tours was the best.
Yeah.
I mean, it was the first type, I think,
Yes.
of that type of ride, but it was like one of the best rides ever made at the time.
Absolutely. And to be an 8-year-old kid going on that, I was the perfect age to really soak it in and still have the wonder of being young and like just being like, whoa, like the whole movement of the ship and the visuals. And
the ice comet part is so
dude,
good.
the ice comet. Dude, I even used to, I was so into Star Tours in the mid 90s on that 95 visit that when I got home in like the next couple days, I kind of had a mental cue of what music tracks were used on the ride, and I tried to recreate on a cassette with my Star Wars soundtracks. And it was like, because when you're going through the comet, it's like basically the asteroid field music.
Yeah, which is my favorite Star Wars music.
Yeah, it's like number one for me pretty much. So I remember trying to recreate it, and then that was just cool and fun. And but it was I think it was reorchestrated. It was a re-recording, I believe, of the original tracks. I think just for Star Tours. But yeah, that's because they had the Michael Giacchino, who of course works with J.J. Abrams a lot. He was the one that did all the orchestration on the current stuff, because there's like outro music when you walk into the Starcade that sounds almost like samba style, but it's like Star Wars. And I guess Michael Giacchino did that because it was like, oh, we need like tourist sounding music, but still use the Star Wars themes.
Yeah.
And you can find that on YouTube actually by Michael Giacchino. And then, I mean, this gets into other stuff that we'll cover later when we go to Galaxy's Edge, but then there's obviously that John Williams theme for Galaxy's Edge, which is an original theme. And then there was said to be immersive music around Galaxy's Edge, but when I talked to Haley after she went there, she's like, I didn't hear anything. Do you remember anything? Because I haven't heard too much of that since I read some articles.
I don't recall. I probably would have to listen for it, you know.
Yeah, because it might just be background drone, I don't know.
You know, when you go with certain people at certain times, it's you're listening or looking for different stuff.
Yes.
So I wouldn't have been soaking it in like
right.
Like
but there's other stuff
or with you or whatever.
Yeah, there's other stuff too. There's like radio transmissions of they have little Easter eggs in them. And anyway, that's all Galaxy's Edge stuff. That'll be covered later. One thing I did want to talk about briefly in the behind the attraction special. Sorry, drinking some Jawa juice here. They talked about the early concepts of Star Tours and the story. And it was really interesting that they were going for a more direct movie kind of thing where like you're in the Rebel Alliance flying an X-Wing or whatever, or you are Luke.
Yeah.
And it's funny, I paused the screen when it was showing those early script things, and I was like reading what was on the screen. And they were going to have Admiral Akbar give a briefing, and you were going to fly out of Hoth Base.
Yeah, like I saw that.
Yeah, it was like, oh, okay, that's kind of interesting. And then the Millennium Falcon was going to be flying with you. A hologram of the Emperor was going to like threaten you, like saying like, your friends are gone and there's no hope or something like that.
Dude,
I
want to see that Star Tours.
Can you imagine the Emperor at the Battle of Endor with like Luke and Vader fighting? He's taking a moment to like hit a switch on his chair to send a hologram directly to Star Tours in the Star Speeder 3000.
When he cloned himself, he took the time to enter Fortnite to announce his return.
That's true. That's true. Oh gosh, that has to come up every so often. And then the early name for the Star Tours company was Cosmic Winds, which is interesting. It's very in-universe. I could see it being a tourist company, but now I wonder, has that been used?
Like that should be like a competitor company.
I know. Yeah. I just think that's interesting. Rex the pilot droid Rex, of course, voiced by Paul Rubens. He was later brought back in an episode of Star Wars Rebels, which also had 3PO and R2 in it, flying not a star speeder but a similar passenger transport.
Mm-hmm.
And Paul Rubens voiced him for that too, and that was cool that they kind of went back and had a little Easter egg.
And nice that he did that because he's really busy.
Yeah, I know, right?
Although at the time he probably actually was busy getting.
He probably was, because in recent years,
off the ground. Yeah,
no,
he's kind of had a resurgence.
He has had a resurgence. And speaking of his dark years, I saw Mystery Men for the first time like 2 nights ago. So that was an interesting little Paul Rubens thing there. Yeah, I think I just about covered all my Star Tours memories and such. Is there any more you could think of?
Let's see. I got sick. That was a memory. I don't really have any distinct memories. Just going on it. Like every time I went to Disneyland when I had a pass in the 90s, the very early 2000s, I'd always have to go on it.
Yep.
I loved spending time in the Star Trader.
Yes.
And it's just not the same.
Yeah,
I mean, it's cool. It's cool, but like even Star Trader, before you would see a lot of cool little things. I don't know. They didn't seem. It didn't come off as very like let's see, like touristy memorabilia. Like a Disney-esque thing. Like you said,
right.
There would be the West End game books.
Mm-hmm.
Those little pewter figures weren't necessarily like you wouldn't look at them and be like, oh, you got that from Disneyland or whatever.
Yeah,
it's a touristy thing or something.
Yeah.
It wasn't cheap either.
No.
But now it's very like it's a lot of toys. Although they had action figures and stuff.
I like some of the exclusives they have, like the build your own little droid kind of RT units where you can mix and match different pieces, and then you can buy that in different. There's like different colored segments to it.
Yeah, that stuff is pretty cool. The lightsaber stuff seemed kind of chintzy, but at the same time, it's like, well, how good could it be unless you're going to. Because Galaxy's Edge has
the good one,
the really expensive one,
right?
It's just a lot of. It just seems like a lot of coffee mugs and T-shirts and hats now, and not a lot of different things.
Yeah, I still have my Boba Fett shirt because when I went there in '95, me and John Cornelius each got a Boba Fett shirt. Of course,
your sleeveless one.
That's the one I cut the sleeves off, and it's just like a big black and white kind of close up of Fett's head. It's not the greatest shirt when I think back on it, like the design. Like John got the cooler one that was from a Topps card that was a painting of Fett that just looked cooler in retrospect. But we didn't want to get the same shirt. That was the
thing. So. Yeah, that's not a good look.
No, twinsies. So it's funny that I still have that shirt though, along with some of my other ones from the 90s. Like I have like a speeder bike shirt that's like kind of like mottled green and brown, and then a couple other ones. But the Han and Leia kissing one from Empire.
I had that one.
Yeah, I remember you had it too.
I miss all my 90s Star Wars shirts. I had that. I had a Palpatine with the lightning, the dark side lightning. I had a Chewbacca, kind of like, it was kind of a tie-dye shirt, but not really tie-dye. It was just the whole shirt was like his fur.
I know the one you mean. Those were cool. They had other ones.
Han and Carbonite and stuff.
Yep.
So
right. Yeah.
But we're not here to talk about shirts.
Yeah. Someone needs to create a collection of Star Wars shirts in a guidebook or something, because there's got to be tens of thousands of Star Wars shirts at this point. But
and speaking of shirts, we need to go back. I'm not going to say where it is, lest anyone swoop in and steal all the memorabilia. But somewhere in Nevada, there's
secret
a
military base.
There's a secret military base. There is a store in Nevada somewhere, and it is like stepping into a 1999 time machine of Phantom Menace T-shirts, toys, memorabilia. Very weird. And It's not a Star
Yes.
Wars shop. It's not a comic shop. It's not a memorabilia shop of that. You wouldn't expect it, but it's there. You got Jar Jar, Trade Federation battleships,
Nemoidians on shirts. It's like really random
Darth
stuff.
Maul.
And on
Yeah,
that note, bring in the dog and cat. Get the Barca Lounger reclined. Get the cup of Joe on the stove, and I think we're about ready to wrap this episode up.
please.
I don't think there's anything else, and make sure everyone tune in to the YouTube channel where this will be, of course, posted. But we got our lore play commentaries. Rogue Squadron is currently going up. We got a few more episodes of that, and then we're going to be doing Super Star Wars here pretty soon. I think any day, and check out the YouTube channel. We're on Facebook. We got the Facebook page, Star Wars Unfiltered. Remember, questions or comments, reach us at starwarsunfiltered@yahoo.com. And then we also have the Instagram page, which I've been occasionally updating every few days, and lots of good stuff there. So until next time, everybody, take care, and may the Force be with you.
Actually, I do have a story from Star Trader.
Oh, do you?
I do. Very quick. It was about 94 because X-Band was still around. Me and my friend Nick Berube were at
good old X-Band.
We'd play X-Band, and we go to Disneyland with our passes, and we played X-Band. And after you played a match on X-Band, which was, for Super Nintendo and Genesis, you could play like Mortal Kombat and NHL and stuff, and with people online play Mortal Kombat. We played against person. After the match, you could chat with a little on-screen keyboard and stuff. You chat with people.
Yeah,
and because of like phone bill stuff, you wouldn't want to do long distance. So many times you'd be chatting with people local to you in the same area code, so you don't want to pay long distance charges because that was a thing.
This story I remember. Yeah, tell it.
So we chat with them, and it turns out it's two girls, right?
Right.
So like, oh wow, girls play video games. This is great. We're like 14
what an interesting
years old.
Concept.
Yeah, right. So we're 14 years old. We're like, how are you? Oh, you're girls. That's great.
That was different in the 90s, though. I think less back then played video games.
Yeah, it just wasn't mainstream.
It wasn't mainstream yet.
That's all. No. It just wasn't in the consciousness.
Sisters played
that it happened.
Games,
that it happened anyway. Yeah, so we're like, oh yeah, we got Disneyland passes. Oh, you do too. Oh, that's cool. Hey, we should meet up at Disneyland. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. So we set it all up, and we're like, oh, we'll meet at the Star Trader, right? Because that makes sense.
The hub.
It's the hub of activity. So we go, and I'm certain that we saw them there, and they saw us, and they just fucking hightailed it out of there. It was like they must have looked at us, and it was like seeing one of those hyper detailed ugly pictures in Ren and Stimpy,
like a UV light, like pointing down at your pores, and like a zit on your forehead,
exactly. And I remember
like sticking out.
I remember what I was wearing, and it was a purple shirt and purple shorts because I love that outfit. I love that outfit.
Oh man,
it was so comfortable. And man, they saw that, and they were.
It sounds like
they were gone.
You were a contestant on Nick Guts or something with that color.
Yeah, exactly. I was on the purple.
The aggro crag.
I was on the purple team, and they were gone. But they kind of had this like goth aesthetic, and at the time, that was like that whole strip from
Craft,
from Main Street.
Nev Campbell, the Craft kind of look.
Yeah, but at Disneyland was a huge hangout for the quote unquote goths at the time.
Bats Day, which I had friends that later in the 2000s went for that.
Right. But it was from all around like Matterhorn and the Tomorrowland area. They would hang out and like, do whatever. It was weird. Always on Friday and Saturday night. So anyway, that's my story. Me and Nick Berube, 14 years old, trying to meet up with some girls from X-Band playing Mortal Kombat, and it didn't work out.
with our listener base, not just our listener base, but with even if we had 1,000 listeners, I guarantee you there'd be like 5 people who might know what X-Band is.
Yeah, I know that's the most obscure part of
It's
any.
really obscure. I never used it. You always talked about it. I remember it in magazines, but I
Yeah.
was phasing out from consoles at that time
It
and my
was
Genesis.
online. It was online console gaming before that was. I mean, they
Yeah.
kind of dabbled in it, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
that
like it was like a LAN party for Super Nintendo and Genesis.
Yeah.
Sort of.
So that's my story.
Good times.